Pour it by hand, put a seal on it.
They're still in there, the instructions.
30 years old.
Wow, okay, that's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to take a picture of this, honestly. You were still working for Brewers, I was still nursing full time. Well, Jenny Lynn was older, but Megan had come along. So that was interesting.
Oh, do you remember when we were on the 4th floor and we have a picture, we had built not a crib, but where the paint, wooden shelves?
Cage.
And Megan was
Actually, yeah, the order was done, they had delivered it to us. I was so excited, opened up the box, and I am not kidding you, it was a bubblegum pink, neon pink.
Yeah, quite a run, quite a evolution. And that's the history of Homestead House.
Yeah, there's 32 years between here and here. Well, I guess this is in the middle.
Homestead House started in 1989. An old friend of mine, and it was actually a furniture reproduction company. And he was making armoires and tables and all kinds of beautiful furniture. And he wanted to do it in the most...
just in a really authentic
that's the word.
Yeah.
Authentic.
And milk paint's the only thing that could really do that. Anything that you get in the can from the hardware store, it's so resinous and it doesn't soak in and bind with the fibers like milk paint does.
All the manufacturers at the time were doing the same thing. They're going to get a modern day paint, they're going to get a machine and they're going to spray it on the cabinet, and it's going to be whatever color you chose, but it's going to be a modern paint. And Robert wanted to be authentic, and the pioneers originally that came to North America used milk paint. They used milk or cream as the vehicle, and they made their own paints with the...
usually just stuff that they'd find at the homestead.
Stuff from the ground.
Farmstead.
It could, colorants were berries and mustard seeds and charcoal and ox blood, things like that. You had your stuff out of the ground, limestone and
clay.
And clay, and they made their own paint, and they could paint the inside of their buildings. Robert researched the formula for milk paint, and he was the only manufacturer of milk paint, and he used it on his products, but then he wanted to start selling it to some stores that he had come across.
Well, I think they were asking him for it. He didn't really want to get into that, but they were just saying, we really need this color, and if you can get it to us, we can sell it. And it's like, oh, bing! So that's when he got all the investors together, 5 investors, you being one of them.
Well, he didn't have the staying power for the business type. He was always an artist type of a person, making things, and his passion was folk art. So it wasn't very long from starting the company, 6 months or so, where we were talking about and followed through on me buying him out and taking over the company. So Homestead House became Homestead House Paint Company. We dropped the reproduction furniture line that he was doing, and we became a paint company, and we were taking over his sales, which were very, very small, we found out, and the repeat customers weren't there. There was no marketing material. There was nothing.
It was kind of starting from scratch, but we did have the concept, the colors, we had I loved the logo of the old barn with the wheel, looking at it from a distance, and we started, we came out with the oil-based line, but then a couple years later came out with, we were the second company in Canada to have a 100% acrylic. And that was because we were appeasing a lot of exterior projects, exterior front doors, the outside of board and batten homes, and the fact that it was 100% acrylic. It's just so durable, and it withstands our Canadian weather, So, and it just started climbing.
It was a lesson for us too, because we found that the milk paint was such a wonderful product to play with, but a lot of people found that they wouldn't pursue the milk paint because they were scared of, Oh,
Yeah.
I have to. It's a powder form, and I have to mix it and instructions. And in the early '90s, we found that the acrylic latex was outselling it
Oh yeah.
100 to
10,
1.
10 to 1, yeah.
Just crazy. And somewhere along the line in the '90s, we did find that more and more people started to get curious and follow through. And milk paint slowly started becoming a...
Well, it's always had its ups and downs, I've found over the years. Pardon me. The same with the colors. You know, midnight blue would be going crazy for a couple of years, and then it would be nothing for a couple of years, and then it goes crazy again. So the milk paint, the liquid, it kind of went up and down like a yo-yo, as with the colors.
Yeah, we've watched the colors in the early... When we first started, it was Kentucky green and soldier blue, dark colors, and you couldn't make enough of it. Those were, and all the rest of the colors were, you know, pretty good, but those two colors, you couldn't keep them on the shelves.
Mm-hmm. There were some companies too, the furniture reproduction manufacturers, especially in Quebec, we were doing some custom colors for them, right? So sending out 30-pound boxes of a custom color, it would be theirs. So that was always a bit of behind the scenes, you know, something to help pay the bills.
But that goes back to that's the beginning of the company, and then that was us doing every town we drove through when we went camping or went anywhere, you're looking at, we weren't so much looking for paint stores, we wanted...
Mom and pop, smaller
yeah.
operations, which we continue to still try to encourage, of course. We did once make the mistake of going into a big box store, and it's just like, there's so many reasons, won't even get into it now, but it's not for us.
Well, we've got a picture of Jenny and me setting up a display, and I think Jenny had a hard hat on.
Oh, yeah, because it was a brand new store. Everybody had to wear the boots and the hard hats, and that was at Scarborough. I think it was a brand new Lansing, Rona. Yeah. So,
but yeah, we were going through looking for mom and pop operations, and mainly interior decorating stores and furniture reproduction, and possibly a paint store in a small town, but generally it's almost like big box. You're going to get lost on the shelves, and we wanted to be different. And we grew it in the first couple of years. We grew sales fivefold, but
all while you were still working for Brewers, I was still nursing full time.
Yeah, we were.
And by then we had, well, Jenny Lynn was older, but Megan had come along. So that was interesting.
We had a guy working for us the first year or so to try to do things day to day, and then I would go in after work around 4 and do what I could. But yeah, it was struggling.
A bit.
It was struggling for sure. We were hurting, and but we hadn't grown it yet.
Well, it got busy enough that you ended up switching your shift to see if you can help me out during the day at the warehouse, and you started working evenings, so you were all day with me at the warehouse, and then off to the Brewers Retail.
Yeah, that's true.
To do the evening shift until 11.
For about 10 years, we did that.
Mm-hmm. Remember that? Oh, I felt like a single parent too at sometimes, because I would finish at the warehouse and then I'd come home, 2 kids, and alone. You know. Yeah. I know you felt a bit guilty here and there because you'd be calling, "How are the kids?" It's like, I don't know. I'm still trying to feed them.
But that's that's the history of the company. Again, it's the small startup struggle. Do whatever you can. We never needed bank loans. Yeah, we did actually.
Yeah, we couldn't get it though, because it's a small business. They don't want to talk to you.
And we were sometimes putting some personal money. I remember doing that a couple of times into the company account. And then later in the year, if it had a good couple of months in the summer, you could take that money back out. But yeah, just to get by. But that's the history of the company.
Well, the product line has definitely gone through some changes here and there, but we've always we haven't really totally discontinued products. We'll keep them available because customers, they'll paint something in one color and they'll want to put on an addition 6 years later. So we've always kind of kept products. But then, of course, Jenny had a vision for our acrylic latex, which was being used for, furniture makeovers here and there. And it was ideal, but she tweaked it and boutiqued it and made it, available
Well,
in a
that's the
smaller
second.
container.
That's the second part of the growth, because the first part was going on the internet, and when we were still very small in 2000.
Getting the website
11,
done. Yeah, that helped.
Finding the private label opportunity that we fell into, and that spurred on our growth.
Right. Yes, we did a private label for milk paint. Down in the USA. Beautiful color range, color line. Yeah, that worked out really well. We also had, a few asks, which we declined on because it was just like, oh, well, let's just move about this very slowly.
But that was the first time
really well.
the milk paint really took off in volume, because she had a following, and I know that I was actually at the point just the year before that where I was considering selling the company, and talking to the accountant about
how much is this goodwill worth?
like what? Yeah, all we can sell after all these years. 20 years or 19 years, whatever it was at the time, was the goodwill we built up, the customer base we'd built up. But and then sending samples down to the States and getting a private label opportunity going.
That was
the big
brilliant.
jump.
And I mean, at that time too, the internet and Facebook and all that kind of stuff, and the whole furniture painting scene was exploding. There's a couple of brands that really, one lady out of the UK, her brand was amazing, and she really got a lot of people eager to paint their furniture and try all these different effects. So it was a great step into this market.
That's a memory too. Do you remember one of my many mistakes was I was aiming for a market of people that would not buy a superior brand paint and pay superior brand prices. And I did that for years, so we would be 10% above big box, somewhere in there, and I was watching every penny, which ended up meaning our margin was so low that we were doing this minimum wage thing round the clock, making very little money after all those years, even though our sales had gone up. And you had told me, and that's when we decided, and when you had said, this is a market, you don't need to appeal to all the masses and do a low margin. We have a superior product here, price it accordingly. And there was somebody doing that, so we did finally increase our margin because of Farrow and Ball, the competition. And that helped save the day as well, until, do you remember all those barrels of product we had brought in, that you had brought in? That helped save the day too. We weren't.
Oh yeah.
And we brought all that because it was
raw materials we brought in at a really good price. That was a big buy.
It was an opportunity that, and again, I can't say I would have done it. And it trucked in, and I used leverage in order to get, because we didn't have room.
We had the steps going up on Niagara Street.
So you'd put it on in the actual where we're making the acrylic back in there wasn't much room, and we ended up with, these were 200-pound and 150-pound barrels, and started stacking them. Got them 3 high and 3D. I think there was 60 barrels or 80 barrels.
Yeah, we literally had, what I can remember, barrel on top of barrel, but then we also covered up barrels with plywood and used it as, this is our new desk. And that was a great buying opportunity of raw materials.
There was just an opportunity that you got for us, and that saved the day, because I don't know if we would have continued on. That raw material was the stuff we needed, but we were able to get it in bulk so cheap because somebody else was going out of business, and Loree snapped that up for us.
Literally maybe $90,000 or $100,000 worth of raw materials I got for $2,000.
So that was, but
it's almost like winning the lottery.
Well, the money that we made off that on our low sales, low margin at the time, that kind of thing saved us. I forget what, but that was around 97, 95, 97, something like that, late 90s, I think.
Megan was just maybe a toddler at that time. So.
Oh, do you remember when we were on the 4th floor and we have a picture? We had built not a crib, but where the paint wooden shelves.
Cage.
And Megan was
Actually, yeah. I just had to. She wasn't walking at that time, so I had her in there. I got some pictures. You know, I'm feeding her and answering the phone at the same time. But yeah, we had this kind of a little cage because he didn't want her to roll out of her little bed. So yeah.
And we've got the picture of her in a jolly jumper in the open door beside Frank. Oh, the lovely elevator, freight elevator.
Oh, the freight elevator. Oh my gosh. Are you talking about the piece of metal?
Yeah, that was a highlight. So we were on the 4th floor. Luckily, for a while, they shut it down finally because it's an old heritage building. We had a freight elevator we could use, but otherwise, 4 flights of stairs up. That's where we started, where Robert had the place, downtown Toronto, and we couldn't afford the 1,500 square foot, I think. So, but the next door came open. It was 400. So I got that, and we moved everything into that and downsized. And later on, we were able to move down to the main floor to a larger area, and that's where
2,000 square feet, I believe it was.
Yeah, and we were getting, it was 1,200 square feet.
Oh.
We were getting primary colors. We couldn't keep up. Now milk paint was growing, so we were getting the primary colors.
Yeah, it was
made
being
for
spun
us.
by somebody else.
And I would drive up, and I would put half a ton or more than that into the car at the time, drive it back down, bring it into our little room. They were all like 40-pound, 30-pound boxes. Yeah. And open it up, and then we would mix by hand those primary colors, the yellow, red, blue, black.
Yeah, we had our little formulation, and it was one of our partners that we were working with at the time. And,
so we did that, and that comes to your bag, the original bag.
Oh yeah. Well, this is the original bag that Robert and Amanda designed with the barn, and I love this little folk art touch here and there, and the papyrus font.
But that's a peel and stick label that had to go on the bag. Somebody had to do that, and then we had instructions printed and folded up, and we would drop that in the bottom of the bag, and then we would drop the bag of milk paint in, pour it by hand, put a seal on it.
They're still in there, the instructions.
30 years old.
Wow, okay, that's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to take a picture of this, honestly. We'll have to do that, take a picture of this.
So those are the, some of the struggles of, in the evolution of the company. And
after this bag, we ended up having the brown paper bag and putting the white sticker on, and then we finally were doing enough product that we ended up getting one printed. And that particular story, that was, it's like we don't want to put the sticker on the back and instructions inside. Let's have everything in the bag. So instructions were on the back of the bag, and we ended up doing this pre-printed bag. And this was an interesting project. We've got a lovely cranberry color on the outside, which is what I had signed off on because, they always give you printed proofs and you have to color check and all that kind of stuff. So the order was done. They had delivered it to us. I was so excited. I opened up the box and pulled out a bag, and I am not kidding you. It was a bubblegum pink, neon pink ink. And it was just kind of like, oh, that feeling when something steps on your chest?
Well, how many did we buy, too? Again, it was like the color charts.
It was every penny we had.
We bought...
So I believe it was 50,000 bags. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you pay up front. You don't have, that's just what you do with these companies back then. And I was on the phone, and the first thing I got told is, well, you should have been here during production day, 6 a.m. one day in the middle of the week. It's like, no, I signed off on this color. We went back and forth, and there was quite a few phone calls, and you ended up talking to the owner of the company.
He ended up stepping in only because we talked 2 or 3 times. and he went back to his production manager, and then he said, okay, we'll run them again. We'll do it right.
This is before cell phones. I would have taken a picture of what I signed off on even, but I didn't even have that. I just said, well, he must have what I signed. And anyhow, he made it right, and we got the real bags in, and this is what we used for about 10 years. Yeah.
We've been in two or three locations now, from 400 square feet to the 1,200. The private label Jenny got us into in 2012, 13, 12 I think. So that's 22 years, 23 years after the company started. That funded us going to the next level, which was coming out to Etobicoke and getting, it started with 4,000 square foot. We ended up with just eight, I believe, 8,000. Because of the private label with the milk paint, we grew to 8,000 square feet out here. Set up our own milk paint room and the whole bit out here. And 2 years later, in 2014, we did our first run of Fusion.
Right, okay.
And
it's a blur sometimes.
And we've been doing that since 14. So now we're at 32 years of Homestead House being the parent company, and selling Fusion mineral paint, Fusion milk paint, Homestead House milk paint, acrylic latexes, all of the ancillary products
the hemp
that
oil,
have
the
come
tongue
in.
oil, the beeswaxes,
Waxes,
there's a
brushes.
ton.
It's incredible where and it started with this bag, and bank loans, and well, what's our record? We found going through. I found an old T4 slip, and it was from 2004, I think. And we paid Loree $8,000 that year to work.
For the year. Well, you get paid
8,000
what is the excess money. You still have to pay for all your expenses and your operating costs and all that kind of stuff. And then what's left, that was the wage.
That was a shock when that was our worst year, but we were always riding on either my brewer's beer truck wage as a backup, or Loree's nursing wage as a backup, and we could take turns doing leave of absences and working full time. Quite a run, quite a evolution, and that's the history of Homestead House.